Hey friends, welcome back. Today's video is going to be just a little bit different. Less of a thought experiment, more of an actual experiment. So, I have tried everything, and I do mean everything. Every little piece of sleep advice. And I'm going to be telling you what actually worked, what didn't work, what I'm going to be keeping in my routine, and what I don't care about going forward. So, reminder, this is just my experience. Don't take this as life advice, but maybe this will be helpful to somebody out there who has been struggling with, we're going to call this perimenopause sleep issues. I'm not sure. I've never had big problems with sleep, but over the past couple of years, I've definitely noticed a pretty marked decline in my sleep quality and sleep time. So stick around, and I'm going to be going through everything I've tried. Okay, so one thing actually really did work, and unfortunately, it was the most expensive thing we tried. I'll get there. Okay, so sleep has been bad for me for probably about the last 3 years in particular. I've been a pretty decent sleeper most of my life. I would say that I am a light sleeper though. Noises and disruptions, they just wake me up. So my husband has like very, very, very mild sleep apnea, and he wakes himself up during the night. It's just related to how his face is built. It's not because of his weight. And he's been sleep studied on this. But anyways, his little interruptions during the night actually will wake me up. That's how light of a sleeper I am. So we have been like really dialing in on our sleep hygiene. So let me define that. Sleep hygiene is just the things that you're doing to make sure that you're getting really good quality sleep. I think this is really important for everybody, obviously, because sleep is it's like the foundation of a lot of other things. And I found for me that if I'm not getting quality sleep, I am also not losing weight. So that has been just a key for me. I needed to be focusing less on losing weight and more on getting quality sleep so that the weight could fall off somewhat naturally. What bad looks like for me. So I'll tell you, bad sleep looks like for me taking more than 30 to 45 minutes to fall asleep, not sleeping in full sleep cycles. So a sleep cycle is 3 hours. So maybe I'll fall asleep at like 11, but then I'll be up at midnight. Or another bad sleep for me would be getting up at 3:30, like inexplicably. We'll get there too. And just being awake for like an hour or two and laying there and being like, no, I need to go back to sleep. And then not falling back asleep until like 30 minutes before your alarm goes off. So if any of this is resonating with you, I have solutions. You might not like them, but I have solutions. So the moment that I decided to fix this and actually get really serious about it was shortly after my dad passed away. So I've mentioned this before, but my dad died of pancreatic cancer earlier this year in January, and I was already not sleeping well leading up to his passing. He lived in a different state, and just because of the life circumstances surrounding everything, family dynamics and whatnot, I was not able to go visit with him until right before he passed. So I was sleeping pretty poorly, and there was a lot going on in my personal life. There was a lot going on in my professional life. Lots of things that were contributing to poor sleep. And I was relying more and more on caffeine to try to get me through. And it was not working. It had stopped working. So this is 6 months of data now, because I started, 5 months of data, bad math, because I started working on sleep hygiene very seriously in the end of January. So now we are here in the middle of July. So I have my notes here. Let me go through what I've tried, and I'll just give you probably a not exhaustive list, but everything that I could remember when I was writing my notes. Waking up without an alarm, circadian lighting, tart cherry juice, magnesium glycinate, no caffeine after 2 p.m., room darkening, a white noise machine, morning sun, evening sun, cold rooms, no screens before bed up to about an hour before bed, reading a actual book before bed for about 20 to 30 minutes, a hot shower before bed, hot baths before bed, journaling before bed, and no phone in the room while falling asleep or overnight. So those are some things that's probably not an exhaustive list of things that I have tried to improve my sleep, but those are the things that I tried. And then the surprising winner, well, there were 2 surprising winners. First and foremost was circadian lighting, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But that was the winner. That worked. Because using circadian lighting, I can conclusively prove that was the number one trigger for how I got better sleep. The second thing was actually doing a life audit, which I didn't realize when I was doing it that it was going to improve my sleep, because that's not why I did the life audit. But life audit actually really helped my sleep quality as well. So those are the 2 things. The circadian lighting was super expensive. The life audit was free. Those are the 2 things that I can confidently say improved my sleep. No hesitations, no questions asked. So let me kind of go through how this all worked, how we worked this all out. So in maybe the beginning of not 2026, but 2025, I started listening to some of like Andrew Huberman's podcasts on getting better sleep, because I was not having great sleep. This was even before my dad was diagnosed. I was just not sleeping very well. I was waking up very consistently in the middle of the night between 3 and 4 and just having a hard time falling back asleep, and just getting more and more and more exhausted, and like piling up sleep debt, I guess, and not being able to power through it anymore. And then the more exhausted I got, the harder it was to get to sleep. And that's so cruel. It's just so cruel. But so I would say by the beginning of January, Justin and I, my husband and I, we were talking about switching over our home to circadian lighting. And what this is essentially light bulbs that dim and brighten following the path of the sun. I hope this makes sense, but our whole home was overhead lights, and they were all LED daylight bulbs. We have a large house. I do have a good natural lighting in my house. We have lots of windows, but the center of the house remains somewhat dark. The hallways remain dark just because there's just not as much natural light getting into them. And then we live in Florida, so there's afternoon thunderstorms. Sometimes our power goes out randomly, intermittently. So relying on mainly overhead lighting, I think, has been the number one most detrimental thing to our sleep health. And so we started experimenting. We did a bedroom makeover. I did not document this process. This was, I think, the beginning of 2025. We did a bedroom makeover, maybe a midpoint through 2025. And we painted it in a dark color. We put sconces on the wall instead of relying on the overhead light. I got a lamp, and I got multiple sources of lighting. And all of that we did in warm light colors, where the rest of the house was in like bright daylight bulbs. And the reason that we did this one room at a time is because it's very expensive to swap your bulbs over to ones that are like adjustable and dimmable. Especially ones where you can have the whole house do it all in one go. So I said, let's just try it in one room. And if it doesn't work, look, not a big loss, not a big deal, right? We're just going to try it in one room. At the same time, I was reading about how important it was to get morning sun first thing, but I was exhausted. The last thing I wanted to be doing was getting up at sunrise because I wasn't sleeping well. But I just forced myself to push through it. I'd be like, no, if I'm awake, I might as well get up and go outside and get some morning sunlight. And it's not hard for me to do because I'm in Florida. If you live somewhere that's cold and dark, this is going to be a lot harder for you to do. But for me, it's not that difficult. I would say even if, and like, okay, so my sister, she has like she lives with us and she has a weird sleep schedule because she works like from 3 a.m. to like noon. So not a third shift, not a second shift, somewhere kind of like in the middle, right? Or a first shift. So she's not able to get sunlight first thing in the morning because she's waking up at like 2 a.m. to get to work at 3 a.m. And so like Huberman actually talked a lot about how to get around this. Like it's not going to be optimal, but it's still better than nothing. So I would highly recommend that you go listen to the Huberman podcast episodes early on in the Huberman Lab podcast. They're just like some of the very first episodes talking about like shift work or how you can defeat jet lag, like things like that. He talks a lot, and a lot of what he talks about in those episodes pertains to circadian lighting. So, but I would say even after the very first few nights of having our bedroom in that warm lighting, we were sleeping better. And that was without turning the TV off. That was without getting off the phones. That was without doing anything else. Just not having daylight overhead lighting where we were sleeping and having multiple layers of light that were very warm and very soft made an absolute immediate difference in our sleep. And I was not expecting that. I thought that this was going to be some sort of like gimmicky, I don't know, like, I don't even like warm light. I'm a millennial. I like daylight bulbs. But my opinion has changed, and now basically our entire house is done on the circadian rhythm lighting set that my husband picked. I believe he picked Philips Hue. There are other companies out there that are doing this. This one, I don't know the reasons why he picked it. I'm sure he explained it to me. But he's a nerd, and he has like Apple HomeKit and Philips Hue bridges and things like that. And he did all that research on that. I told him what I wanted, and he made it happen. So my husband is a godsend. So I would say that was the number one thing that basically immediately made a difference. And the difference was remarkable. So then we said, okay, this is worth the investment. So we started switching over the rest of the lights in the house. And that was also like a longer process because those bulbs are expensive. The bridges are expensive. Like the switches are expensive. So everything had to be bought for that, and it was expensive. I don't know the total. If I had to guess, I would say it was less than $3,000, but I'm thinking just like in that range. But if you could only do it somewhere, I think I would have not done it in the bedroom first. I think I would have done it in the main living spaces first, since the run up to bedtime is probably the most important part of this equation. So I think if I could go back and do it again, I would have done the circadian lighting in the main living area first and just kept the bedroom lights off and used candles or lamps instead. with just cheap warm bulbs, not on the circadian lighting thing. But I think that having that in the main living room probably would have made the biggest difference immediately. Okay, so that was the expensive thing. I also wanted to talk about like chili pads or 8 sleeps or things like that, like bed cooling systems. I'm looking at the chili pad. We will probably end up investing in that later. We just have more important things right now that we're wanting to spend money on. So that's probably going to be a trigger we pull in the future, but right now that's not something that I'm willing to invest in. So those are like expensive things that will help. Cooling your bed will help. We can't use a bed jet system because why can't we? Oh, because Justin has dry eyes, and him sleeping with air blowing on him is an absolutely not going to happen sort of thing. So we're not going to do a bed jet. We're probably also not going to do an 8 sleep for multiple reasons, and I might have a video on that later. Not important right now. So the number one thing was that circadian lighting. I'm going to say, but that was expensive. So let me give you the free options that actually helped. The things that actually worked out of my list, hold on, I just dropped it, were morning sunlight as soon as you can after you wake up. So for me, what that means is initially I was having to set an alarm for 6:30. Disgusting, right? I was having to set an alarm for 6:30 and get out and catch the first bit of sunlight that I could, because I still needed to get ready for work. So I had to adjust my alarm earlier to get out to get sunlight so that I could spend 20 to 30 minutes in nature, in sunlight, first thing in the morning, and then go in and get ready. And that just sucked so hard, but it was free and it definitely helped. I think the cumulative effects of that was like more pronounced than maybe the circadian lighting, because really what you're doing when you're getting morning sunlight in your eyeballs first thing in the morning is you're doing circadian lighting to your brain. You're getting that morning sunlight in your eyeballs. You're telling your brain, look, it's morning. This is when we're going to be waking up. And now your brain is setting your ultradian cycles. Those are the cycles that your body runs through. And like your baby's bodies do this too. Your kids' bodies do this too. Through 90-minute cycles throughout the course of the day. And you can definitely look this up. This is well researched. And so what you're doing when you get that morning sunlight is you're anchoring your ultradian cycle to that morning sunlight, which means that you will be tired when the sun starts setting. But this takes a little bit of time for your body to get into a new rhythm. If you have like a not traditional schedule, like my sister who's waking up at 2 a.m., so she needs her body to be naturally alert about 2 a.m., there's ways to get around this. I'm not going to cover that because that's more niche. You can definitely look that up with Andrew Huberman's podcast. But for me, it meant setting that sucky alarm and coming out and getting the first morning sunlight. And I'm not going to lie, it was hard. It sucked. I didn't want to get out of bed, but I stuck with it and I did it and it helped. And it was free. It only cost me time. But I wasn't sleeping anyway, so it was fine. The other thing, cheap thing, or free thing that helped was no caffeine after 2 p.m. Caffeine has, a really cool butterfly just flew past. Anyways, caffeine has a half-life of, I can't remember, it's like 4 hours, 6 hours, something like that. So if you're having a cup of coffee at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. to get through the afternoon slump, that caffeine is not clearing your system for like another 4 to 6 hours, which means you're still going to have some caffeine in your system at 10 p.m. if you're trying to go to bed, which means you're not actually shutting down the systems that need to be sleeping. So you cannot be drinking caffeine before a certain amount of time. So I just reverse engineer that. If I want to be in bed at 9, then I need to stop drinking caffeine 6 hours before then, which means let me not do bad math here, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I cannot be drinking caffeine any later than 2 to 3 p.m. because I want to be signaling to my body that it is time to sleep as the sun is setting, so that I'm getting tired, so that my body's producing the melatonin that it needs, so I don't have to be supplementing it with melatonin. That's a whole thing you can look up too. So no caffeine after 2 p.m. works for me. Other free / really cheap things, getting sunlight in your eyeballs as the sun is setting. So that's another thing. Anchoring your brain to morning sunlight tells your brain this is time to wake up, it's time to get active. Anchoring your brain to the setting sun tells your brain it's time to go to sleep, it's time to wind down, it's time to not be active, it's time to produce some melatonin. So, you can do this just by watching the sunset. So we do a thing now called catio hour. We come out on the patio, we let the cat out for an hour during sunset, and we chill. We talk about the day. We scroll on the phone. It doesn't really matter. Mostly we try not to be on the phones during this time, and I try not to be on my phone during morning sun as well. But I think the fact of just being outside and getting the sunlight in your eyes at both those times is enough. I'd rather not be on my phone, mostly because I'm doing dumb stuff on my phone. If I'm on my phone, that's not actually relaxing, but I don't think that it's actually tied to like the blue light from the phone, if that makes sense. I think the sunlight is overpowering the blue light, and the fact that I'm not relaxing when I'm on my phone has more to do with what I'm doing on my phone versus the phone itself. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Room darkening, getting room darkening curtains or hanging up thick blankets, that'll work too. Getting, putting tape over like the smoke detector light so that it's not blinking in the middle of the night. Making sure that you're not having light bleed. So this is something that happens on, windows, putting up a valance or even rolling up a towel to stuff it under your blinds. Making your room as dark as possible. Cheap, not hard to do, and like very low effort for the reward. Then white noise. We got a white noise machine off Amazon. Justin hooked it up to Apple HomeKit, but you could just get one where you push a button. It was pretty cheap. Probably less than $20. That has made a huge difference. So we have multiple people in our home that run different schedules. So having someone get up at 3 a.m. or having someone leave the house at 2 a.m., making noise or whatever is detrimental to someone like me who is a light sleeper. So having that white noise pointed towards our bedroom door cancels out the noise that happens in the house when we're trying to sleep. So that was like a very inexpensive, low effort way to help with the sleep hygiene. Magnesium glycinate, tart cherry juice. I read about this being like a combination that you could use. I think the magnesium glycinate actually helps. But I'm needing to take like 300 milligrams instead of the recommended 200 milligrams to actually see a difference. I don't think the tart cherry juice makes a difference at all. I like the way it tastes, so I have some in the fridge and I've been using it, but I don't see a difference in when I run out and when I have it. So I don't think that's making a difference. I just happen to personally like it. What else here? Having a cold room. This is actually really hard for us to do. We have a large house. We do not run our AC on its lowest setting. So during the day, our AC is set at 78, which if you're in Florida, you probably think that's crazy. And then at night, it's set at 74. So it's actually really warm in our room. And our room is the furthest room away from the AC handler as well. So it tends to get really warm. Justin can't have a fan blowing on him, so we have the overhead fan going, but it's warm in our room and I sleep warm. So this has been really, really hard. This is actually why we're looking at getting the chili pad for the bed. So this has been really hard to deal with. So I don't use a blanket. I only use a top sheet And I don't use anything that's warm. So I don't sleep in like warm pajamas, no flannel, nothing that's going to trap heat. I also got sheets that were like cooling sheets. I don't know if they made a difference or not, but they were better than flannel or blankets or something like soft, I guess. So those were other things that we tried. No screens. We tried not running the TV in the bedroom. I don't think that that made a big difference, honestly. We might get a screen shade for the TV in the bedroom. So to be clear, what we watch at night is a weather report and maybe like a cat video. So we're not like Netflixing. We're not like watching a movie or something before to fall asleep. Like, we're watching something low stimulation, low whatever. So like, I think that that is actually more important than the blue light thing, because if we actually watch something that's engaging, then our brains are actually engaging. But like, I will fall asleep when the weather is on, so that's why we watch the weather report, because I'll fall asleep. So I don't think having the TV on right before bed has been detrimental. I think it's what you're choosing to watch. So if you're choosing to watch something that's super boring, like if Justin puts on some golf or baseball or something, I'll be asleep immediately. I think those are so boring. But it'll keep him awake because he's interested in it. But like the weather report, that puts us both to sleep. So like, even when we're on vacation now, we bring the iPad with us and we watch the weather report to fall asleep. I don't know. That's just a weird thing we do, but it works. And then journaling before bed has not made a bit of difference for me. No phone in the bedroom at night, I think makes a difference for me, but doesn't make a difference for Justin. I now make it a priority to make sure that my phone is plugged up out of the bedroom, so that if I do wake up in the middle of the night, I'm not checking the time. I'm not looking at notifications. I'm just waking up and saying, okay, I'm awake. I'm going to go back to sleep. And then that's it. I'm not trying to get re-engaged into anything. And hot showers before bed, they don't seem to make a difference for me. I prefer to shower at night anyway. So this is just my normal routine. And I can't say if I switched to showering in the morning, if that would make a difference or not, because that's not the way that my life is structured. Showering in the morning doesn't make sense. So the hardest of all of these to do, obviously, is the circadian lighting. I mean, it's simple if you have the money and the time, I guess, or a person who can help walk you through how to set it all up. But for me, that was definitely the hardest because it cost money and I didn't know how to do any of it. Justin taught me how to use the apps for it. And I'm sure I could have figured the apps out myself, but to actually go and set it all up, I don't think I could have done that on my own. Not without like significantly investing a lot of time into teaching myself how to use those technologies, which were just not that big of a priority. A low effort way of doing that would just be swapping your overhead daylight bulbs to warm, soft bulbs that don't provide a whole lot of light, and instead relying on lamps or task lighting when you need it. So that would be like the low effort way to do that. So my verdict, the one thing that actually mattered, light. Light actually matters. Getting sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning, getting sunset in your eyes last thing at night if you can, and then changing your light bulbs in your house so that they are not overhead daylight bulbs. That has been the most impactful thing for my sleep, hands down. The things that did nothing for me, cherry juice and journaling, those didn't do anything for me. Not saying they wouldn't do something for you, but just like, I was throwing stuff at the wall, trying low effort, cheap things to try. Those didn't seem to help at all. And what I'm keeping versus what I have dropped. I am keeping the morning sun. Getting morning sun has become the priority for me, and now I am naturally waking up with no alarm right around sunrise every single morning. So I am up without fail before 7 a.m., usually closer to 6:30, And instead of laying in bed and being like, oh, let me get another 30 minutes of sleep, I just get out of bed and I come out to the patio and I get my morning sun, no questions asked. It's just a routine now. What I am also keeping, I'm keeping the magnesium glycinate. I think that's a low effort way that actually helps. And most of us are probably magnesium deficient anyway. So you're getting other benefits with doing the magnesium glycinate. And what I have dropped, what doesn't matter to me, that I think actually might have made a difference was the reading before bed. I personally enjoy reading before bed. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I think the nights when I read, that's me choosing something that's low stimulation, right? And not reading on a device, reading an actual book. So that's me choosing something that's low stimulation. The nights that I like flip through YouTube shorts, that's me choosing something high stimulation. So I think it's not necessarily you choosing to do something before bed, but it's what you're choosing to do. Choosing something that's low stimulation will naturally put you in a lower, more sedative state, where choosing something that's high stimulation is going to put you in a higher, more reactive state, which makes it harder to sleep. So I have not kept the reading before bed as a keystone piece. I still do it just because I enjoy doing it. But if I don't get to read before bed, it's not making a difference in my sleep. And then the cherry juice makes no difference. And I don't think the journaling makes a difference either. But if I was going to start all over again and do it again from scratch, and I had no money to invest in circadian lighting, I would start with morning sunlight and end with the sunset. Those would be the two free, cheap, easy things you could do. If I had some money to invest, I would swap my daylight bulbs over to warm bulbs. And if I had more money and more time to invest, I would set up a circadian lighting system in your house. So that's what's made the biggest difference for me. I'm wondering, am I fixed? I don't think I'm fixed necessarily, because I still have an occasional crap night of sleep. But I am definitely better. And I'm not having to wake up with an alarm. So that's been really phenomenal. For the most part, I am not having to rely on caffeine or sugary treats to get through the day as well, which has been helpful for the weight loss. And so I think these little tiny things can stack. I think they can make a big difference. So, have you tried any of this sleep advice? Has any of it actually ever worked for you? If so, what has been the keystone thing that you just kept in your sleep hygiene routine? Because I'm curious if I missed something that really worked for you, and that might be something that I want to add. So I want to try it next. So leave me your thoughts on this topic, and I look forward to having some more conversations with you guys. But be praying for me. I'll be praying for you. Love you. Bye.